Hello everyone, and welcome to this lesson on diffusion. So let's start by reminding ourselves that cells are the basic unit of life, and they're basically like little factories where a ton of complex reactions occur. These reactions are necessary to keep an organism alive, and they're going to require raw materials in order to churn out the desired products. In order for them to do that, there has to be some form of exchange between the cells that are, surrounded by a partially permeable membrane and their external surroundings, which will enable the cell to obtain its raw materials, since they don't inherently have all the substances that they're going to need to carry out their metabolic reactions. And since these cells are carrying out metabolic activities, that also means that they're going to be producing a lot of waste products. And these waste products can be very toxic for the cell's survival, and that's why they need to rapidly get rid of them. So there has to be an exchange mechanism that's going to allow substances to enter the cell through the cell membrane and also leave through that same membrane. One such mechanism is diffusion. Now, diffusion is a passive process in which substances move from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration, so down a concentration gradient. The word passive implies that this process does not make use of any ATP, which is the energy currency of cells. Instead, the energy for diffusion comes from the natural kinetic energy that each molecule possesses, which keeps them in a constant state of motion and makes them move from an area of less space to an area of more space, so they spread out more evenly. So in this process, no new energy is being expended. Only the pre-existing kinetic energy of the molecules is being used to move them down a concentration gradient. Now at this point you may ask, what is a concentration gradient? Well, the term is basically self-explanatory. When within a system there exists some sort of gradation in the concentration of a substance, meaning there's a relatively higher concentration on one side and a lower concentration on the other side. And that is basically a concentration gradient. And when we say something moves down a concentration gradient, what we mean is that it is moving from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. This is a natural phenomenon that would occur if you were to rely just on the natural kinetic energy of a substance. On the other hand, when we say something is moving up or against a concentration gradient, then what we mean by that is that the substance is moving from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration. A great example to understand what diffusion is using a perfume in a closed room. When you first spray a perfume in one corner of a room, initially that's where you're going to smell it the strongest, in that corner. But after some time, you can smell the perfume across the entire room. This is a classic example of diffusion. But what's really going on at the molecular level when you spray your perfume? Well, initially, all the molecules are located in the corner that you sprayed the perfume. But because of the kinetic energy that those molecules possess, they're in a state of constant motion and are constantly colliding into each other since they're very concentrated in that one location. But after some time, as a result of this collision, these molecules are pushed further and further apart and they space out. So they move away from the site where they were first sprayed and spread evenly across the room. When that happens, you'll be able to smell the perfume all across the room rather than just where you initially sprayed it.
Quick pause. If you're finding value in this explanation, there's so much more to discover at Alt Academy, where we break down every A-level concept with the same clarity. Now back to the video lesson.
This same process of diffusion is the foundation of our respiratory system, and the process of gas exchange relies heavily on just diffusion. Now, gas exchange occurs inside the alveoli of our lungs, which contain oxygen-rich air. Just outside the alveoli are capillaries that bring blood from the rest of the body towards the lungs. Now, our body's cells are always respiring, and they use up oxygen to produce energy, and in that process, they make carbon dioxide as a waste product. These cells are surrounded by capillaries, and the capillaries carry blood that's rich in oxygen. This oxygen diffuses out of the blood and into the respiring cells, while the carbon dioxide that was produced as a waste product in those cells diffuses out from the cells into the blood. So now, as this blood is going back towards the lungs, it has become rich in carbon dioxide and depleted in oxygen. The alveoli, on the other hand, and the air within them, is rich in oxygen and is relatively low in carbon dioxide. So what we have now is a concentration gradient for both of these gases to diffuse. Oxygen is going to diffuse down its concentration gradient from the alveoli into the oxygen-depleted blood, and from there it's going to go to the rest of the body. And the carbon dioxide, which this blood is now rich in, is going to move from the blood to the alveoli, down its concentration gradient. This makes the blood once again rich in oxygen and low in carbon dioxide, and now it's ready to go back through the rest of the body and repeat the cycle again. All that being said, diffusion doesn't always happen at a steady rate. You see, there are many factors that are constantly influencing the rate at which a substance will diffuse in living organisms across a cell membrane. One of these factors is the steepness of the concentration gradient. What that means is, how big is the difference in concentration of the substance on one side compared to the other side? The greater the difference, which means that one side would be very concentrated while the other barely has any of that substance, then the gradient is steep. And the less the difference in concentration is, the less steep the gradient is. Now, if the gradient is steeper, then the molecules are more concentrated on one side, and therefore they will collide into each other more often due to their kinetic energy. And as a result, they tend to space out further. This is why, with a steeper concentration gradient, the rate of diffusion is faster. On the other hand, if the concentration gradient is less steep, the molecules won't be bumping into each other as often and wouldn't move to the other side as fast. This is why a less steep concentration gradient means a slower rate of diffusion. To sum it up, the rate of diffusion is directly influenced by the steepness of the concentration gradient. A steeper gradient means faster diffusion, and a less steep gradient means diffusion will be slower. But the concentration gradient isn't the only factor that influences the rate of diffusion. Another important factor here is temperature. See, the higher the temperature, the more kinetic energy the molecules are going to possess, and that's going to increase the rate of diffusion. At higher temperatures, molecules have more kinetic energy, and at lower temperatures, they have less. When molecules have a higher kinetic energy, they move about faster and end up colliding into each other more often, and so they diffuse across the membrane faster as well. The higher temperature doesn't just affect the substances that are diffusing though, it also affects the membrane itself. The higher temperature will also cause the phospholipids in the membrane to have a higher kinetic energy, and that will make the membrane more fluid as the phospholipids space out. And so, increasing the temperature increases the rate of diffusion by not only affecting the kinetic energy of the molecules that are trying to diffuse, but also the kinetic energy of the phospholipids in the membrane, causing the membrane to become more fluid and therefore more permeable. Now, at lower temperatures, the opposite will be true. If the temperature is very low, the molecules will have less kinetic energy and won't be able to move around as fast, and so they'll collide into each other less often and the rate of diffusion will slow down. Similarly, at low temperatures, the membrane will also become less fluid because the phospholipid molecules will also have less kinetic energy. That means they'll come closer together and leave less space for substances to diffuse through. So it's completely possible that a substance that was diffusing through a membrane at higher temperatures will be unable to do so at lower temperatures, because if the membrane gets less fluid and the phospholipids come closer together at lower temperatures, it's possible that they become too close to each other to allow that molecule to go through anymore. Now, besides these external factors, there are also some properties of the molecules themselves that affect the rate of diffusion. One of these factors is the size of a molecule that is trying to diffuse across a membrane. Generally, Molecules that are really small can diffuse across the membrane almost instantaneously, while molecules that are larger will either diffuse really slowly or not at all. The reason for that is that the smaller molecules can easily just fit through the spaces between the phospholipid molecules, whereas the larger ones can't do that. This is why at higher temperatures, when the membrane becomes more permeable and the phospholipid molecules are farther apart, sometimes some moderately sized substances can now start to diffuse across, even though they were previously unable to do that because there wasn't enough space for them to pass through the phospholipid molecules at the lower temperature. So generally, the smaller a molecule is, the faster it's going to be able to diffuse across a membrane, and the larger it is, the slower it will diffuse, if at all. Another property of the molecule itself that influences the rate of diffusion is its polarity. Now, the membrane itself is considered to be a nonpolar structure because of the hydrophobic fatty acid tails, which is most of it. And so, it allows an easy pathway for nonpolar molecules to diffuse through, and resists the free entry of polar substances. So if a substance is nonpolar, it can just diffuse across the membrane at a pretty fast rate, but a polar molecule can't do that because it'll be repelled by the fatty acid tails. This is why nonpolar gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen can just diffuse across the membrane so easily, but polar ions such as sodium and potassium do not, since when they try diffusing across, they're repelled by the hydrophobic fatty acid tails. Now, there is one important exception to this rule, and that is water. See, water is a polar molecule, but it can still diffuse across the membrane. And not just diffuse, but diffuse even faster than a nonpolar molecule like oxygen does. Now the question is, how does it pass through if it's polar? Because based on what we just said, shouldn't it be repelled by the phospholipid tails? And the answer is, well, yes, it should. But see, the water molecule is so small that despite the fact that it's polar, it can still fit through the spaces between the phospholipid molecules without being repelled. Because it's so very small, it has a sort of immunity against this repulsion that other polar molecules don't have. But then you may think, okay, fine, it can diffuse, but how come it's faster than something nonpolar like oxygen? Once again, the answer is, it's so small. Like we already said, smaller substances tend to diffuse faster than larger ones. And because water is so small, it can diffuse even faster than oxygen. Hypothetically, if you had a nonpolar molecule that was even smaller than the polar water molecule, then that molecule would be able to diffuse even faster than water. But generally, nonpolar molecules diffuse more easily than polar molecules, and smaller molecules diffuse faster compared to larger ones. But regardless of whether it's a small molecule or a large molecule, all of these molecules will diffuse across the membrane faster if the membrane is more fluid, because the space between the phospholipid molecules will increase, making it more permeable. So if the membrane is more fluid, then diffusion can occur at a higher rate, and if it's less fluid, then diffusion will slow down, even if it's the same molecules that are diffusing across. So besides the external factors and the properties of the molecules themselves, membrane fluidity also greatly influences the rate of diffusion across a membrane. Two other major factors that influence the rate of diffusion are the surface area to volume ratio and the diffusion distance, and both of these will be discussed in the next lesson. So, to recap, we learned that diffusion is absolutely essential in order for cells to obtain raw materials and remove waste products from themselves. We also learned that diffusion is a passive process in which substances move from the area of their higher concentration to the area where they're in a lower concentration, down a concentration gradient. We saw how our respiratory system makes use of diffusion to deliver oxygen to our blood and remove carbon dioxide from our blood. We looked at the various factors that can affect the rate of diffusion. For example, the greater the steepness of the concentration gradient, the greater the rate of diffusion. Similarly, we saw how higher temperatures lead to molecules having greater kinetic energy and increasing the rate of diffusion. Then we looked at some properties of the molecule itself that affects the rate of diffusion. For example, smaller molecules diffuse at a much faster rate than larger ones. We saw how, in general, our membrane allows nonpolar substances to diffuse across freely, but there is some restriction for polar substances. The exception to this that we looked at, of course, is that of water, which can move regardless of its being polar because it's so small. Finally, we saw how the fluidity of the membrane can also affect the rate of diffusion, as in when the membrane is more fluid, it's more permeable and diffusion can occur faster. That's all for this lesson. I hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey there! If you found this A-level biology lesson helpful, why don't you head over to altacademy.org and sign up for our full A-level biology course. In addition to biology, you could sign up for physics, chemistry, math, or 4 other A-level subjects. Thousands of students have already taken the leap. What are you waiting for? See you there.